Well, hello, everyone. We're going to do a romp through alternative medicine for the next hour. We're going to explore the world of another kind of medicine. And I know you've got ideas right now of what alternative medicine is. I don't want to take those away from you, but I'm going to add or maybe subtract. Well, let's take a look. Before we get into it, of course, we have to say something about this information is provided for general information only. Presentation is not intended to be nor to be construed as medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, or as a substitute for consultation with qualified health professionals who are familiar with your individual medical needs. There you go. There's a disclaimer. We'll go from there. So, fish tank. It's dirty. You know, it's been so dirty for so long, the fish aren't feeling too good. So, there's an easy way to deal with this, but, in our world that we're going to talk about today, what do? You give the fish medication. So there's a family. The health choice is there. As you think, oh, well, I'm just living. Everything's fine. I'm not doing much. But then these things start to come in after you and are around you. Anxiety, profit for health, sugar, toxic tea, low vitamin D, social media causing distress and anxiety and depression in young, poor gut health, poor air, prescription drugs, isolation, fast foods, aging, poor water, harsh chemicals, depression, seed oils, no sunshine, medical air against pesticides, low exercise, processed foods. I guess maybe we're swimming in something too, and we don't realize it. What kind of alternative medicine are we talking about? I heard somebody talking about crystals, and then I heard someone talking about essential oils. I said, "Is your presentation on essential oils?" I said, "No." And it's herbalists, chiropractors, doctors of Oriental medicine, homeopathy, acupuncture, massage, yoga, Tai Chi, functional medicine, nutritionalists, sportsmen. They all have an aspect of alternative medicine in them, but that's not where we're going today. We want to take a look at the 1,500 to 2,000 U.S. physicians that are MDs, DOs, and naturopathic doctors. They're medical school trained. They have been participating in conventional medicine, but after a while, they just felt like, I'm just ordering a test and writing a prescription, ordering a test and writing a prescription, ordering a test, writing a prescription. So they stepped over the line, said, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to look for root causes and see if we can stop it besides just giving a drug to cover up the symptoms. They normally don't accept any insurance, and they have a clientele. And that clientele are those for whom medicine has failed. Oh, there's a growing number, too, that are coming in. They just want to try a more natural approach. They don't want to be on those drugs. I mean, people who are over 65 on average are on 6 to 7 what they call lifetime drugs. They'll take them till they die. They may not have to, but they don't know that. They're just listening to the system. And I do appreciate modern medicine. If I were in a car accident, had a broken leg, it's the best trauma care in the world. Some excellent life-saving drugs are out there. Dedicated physicians who really try their best. Unfortunately, they have somewhere between 5 and 7 minutes in an office call. And if they're part of a system and they try to go longer, they're going to be reprimanded. They have to fit within the system, and big business medicine is out there now. That side is what I really want to talk to just for a few minutes, because if you don't get the gist of where I'm coming from, why we're not just off to the side. We're a major player in thousands and thousands of people's lives. Is the medical establishment your friend? Books have been written. Where we failed, systemic analysis of U.S. healthcare, grade F. Or Cancer Factory, how we've killed so many people in the industry and the dangers of American workers. The War on Cancer, Anatomy of Failure. Broken and bankrupt and dying. How to solve the great American healthcare ripoff. and butchered by healthcare. How they are trying to keep you actually sick. It's not healthcare as much as it is sick care. Now, unfortunately, the United States, who has a lot of money, comes in last of the wealthiest 11 countries on our health care, even though we spend the most. I mean, there is accelerated spending, worsening outcomes. Um, Pharma has truly captured the medical establishment. If you don't realize that, I mean, I can give you links and you can go into it later. Just it, and you don't have to accept my word. You do your own research. I mean, that's really what it is. The FDA, CDC, NIH, NIID, the Fauci's group, these are all captured by pharma. Pharma gives money to these organizations. They dole it back out to research institutions, and it's all one big happy family. It is a cabal. It is controlled. Insurance companies are part of it. Universities are part of it. The research is part of it. The media is complicit. Advertising is bought and paid for by pharma. So you get these things like 70% of drugs advertised on TV, low value. Why? Because we had one that worked, but they needed to change it to keep the patent up. And so they changed it slightly, but it wasn't even as valuable as the old one was. Capturing the government, big pharma's takeover of policy making. Hey, big spender, pharma, 6.6 billion. TV ad layout outlays outranks most other industries. Why? It's not because they sell stuff off of all of those ads that you see on TV. It's that they can control the narrative of the media. So the media is not going to say anything negative when 70% or so of their revenue comes in through pharma. Lies I taught in medical school, how conventional medicine is making you sicker, and what you can do to save your own life. And this kind of stuff is out there. I know you probably haven't read it. This book's coming out. I've listened to the guy, Robert Lufkin. You can find him on YouTube. He talks about his journey in medicine, how he had 4 chronic disorders, and how he fought those and now is healthy. But the medical research is captured. Rigor Mortis is a book that was written a few years ago by Richard Harris, and it was really interesting how sloppy science creates worthless cures, crushes hope, and wastes billions. I mean, he was an NPR science writer. I was kind of surprised that this came out. But that the studies that are done on cancer couldn't be duplicated. Only about 7% of them. It was unbelievable. Why? Because if pharma is paying for the studies to be done by the universities, through the NIH, through the CDC, these organizations, they want a drug that's going to pass. And they will cherry pick information to make that happen. Robert Kennedy has been on this for a long time. He's got the excellent book out, The Real Anthony Fauci. And this one I'm reading, it is terrifying. The bioweapons race. We took the Nazi bioweapons guys and the Japanese bioweapons guys from World War II, gave them a pass while others are being executed, and we put them into the CIA, into the universities. Why? Because we could use their knowledge. December 1971, Richard Nixon says we're going to have a war on cancer. 50 billion has been spent. No appreciable change in the outcomes. Despite immense advances in basic scientific knowledge about cancer, as well as marked increase in resources, the war on cancer went poorly. 1986, Ballard and Smith concluded that some 35 years of intense effort, focused largely on improving treatment, must be judged a qualified failure. 11 years later, they wrote again, published an update, still cancer undefeated, with little reason to change their conclusion. I have heard somewhere between 2 to 5% increased longevity or increase on mortality on all overall cancers. Some can be cured now. There are some that can be. There are some chemos that are very good. But for the most part, most of the cancers, we haven't improved very well at all. A new look at cancer. Despite all the very expensive toxic radical weapons, the enemies are not totally destroyed. On the contrary, this causes collateral damage we're talking about radiation chemo, accompanying unnecessary toxicities in normal cells. Inevitably, it reduces the patient's quality of life. Even for the developed magic bullets intended to selectively kill cancer cells in the tumors, without much influencing surrounding cells, they fail to eradicate the residual tumor, which typically relapses after a year or less. When the tumor reoccurs, it is more malignant and uncontrollable than before. The overall mortality statistics, death rates for most common carcinomas is not optimistic. In celebrating, this is a research study, in celebrating the 50th year war on cancer, we need to reevaluate our triumphs and failures. Cancer is preventable rather than treatable, as it was addressed 25 years ago. We don't propose that research on treatment be stopped, but request substantial realignment in the balance between treatment and prevention. We're going to talk about that. You might feel like I'm beating this dead horse, let's take a look at some things. Cancers. If you get on the site and say, how are cancers doing? They say, oh, we're winning the war. Does this look like we're winning the war? Cancer incidence rate. Does this look like we're winning the war? Cancer incident rate. I mean, these are comparing it to some problems that we have in our society, like glyphosate. Remember that fish tank? A lot of foods are sprayed with glyphosate. Corn and soy that are genetically engineered. You can see that they're very perilous. So who is Tom Lowe? That's I. Here I am. Give you a little bit of background. Entrepreneur, researcher, designer, inventor, marketer, author. 16 businesses, including environmental hazardous material inspection consulting for 25 years. I designed software company that dealt with some of these things, right to know, hazways, pesticides, asbestos, hospital preparedness for bioterrorism. I did some work there, co-founded an alternative health clinic in Michigan and a website on that. I updated an old therapy using UV light and blood called UBI. Now has over 1 million uses. I've had the privilege of speaking at medical conferences in 5 different countries and really throughout the U.S. for a number of years. So it was great privilege. Organized 5 alternative medical conferences for physicians, which again, I got to know some of the top people in these fields that were alternative medicine, whether it was cancer, whether it was allergy, or whether it was EMFs, or whether it was pulse electromagnetic frequency, or just a slew of speakers. I have one wonderful wife, married 52 years, have 11 children. One's adopted. Our oldest had a brain tumor, oligodendroglioma, and it fueled my interest in this. This is from my book that I wrote called Invisible Cure. I watched my son die. No parent, spouse, brother, or sister wants to see a loved one die. It's indelibly etched on my mind like the day that he was born. He was our firstborn of 10 natural-born children between Deb and I, and we adopted also a beautiful girl as our 11th. This is the book that I wrote. It's available on Amazon. Integrative physicians, now we're going to start getting into more of the alternative here. Usually work out of a small office with 1 to 5 staff. I looked it up for how many physicians there are in Florida, which is where I'm speaking from right now, and there are about 7,000 DOs. On the flip side, there's about 100,000 MDs. Probably 20 to 30 of them have gone over to this dark side of alternative medicine. They're considered very small business, out-of-pocket pay, so you have to pay for it. That stops a lot of people. It shouldn't. It's your health. Don't let, because someone else pays for it, say, oh, that's the best way. My opinion. They look for root causes and work at fixing those things. You know that only FDA says only a FDA-approved drug can cure? There it is. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. There it is. The only one that can prevent, cure, or treat are those drugs that they've passed. Now, these are a few of the alternative um, therapies that are listed from another website. Things like hormone replacement or hyperbaric oxygen, autohemotherapy. You don't know what these things are probably. Ozone therapy, prolozone, pulse electromagnetic fields, chelation therapy. We'll talk about some of these as we head through this. What diseases do alternative medicine doctors deal with? Almost everything. You know, cancer is a big one. I'm going to talk about that later on. Alzheimer's, another huge issue. It's going to be our second or third cause of death in the United States very soon. Heart disease is our number one. Diabetes, autoimmune disorders, chronic fatigue, joint pain, obesity, depression, Lyme disease, lupus, a whole raft of things, shingles. These are all able to be dealt with in the alternative world in a different way. Now, I'm not saying they're the only thing, because sometimes conjunctive with medicine is really the way to go. They look for a more holistic approach, and you'll see that holistic medicine. And these, sometimes all they do is change, the food, institutional food a little bit, and they call it holistic medicine and give you a yoga class. I'm not saying that doesn't help, but I think that's a little bit on the light side. Let's put it this way. We're going to look at 5 different areas that kind of capsulize. So we're going to look at lifestyle. You've heard that one before. I know. Let's go through it a little bit. Your immune system is really critical on how that affects everything. Nutrition, obviously. Detox, getting stuff out that you don't want in there. And then finally, attacking the disorder with something. So let's take a look at these a little bit. Did I lose you on that? Did you just click out and go, oh, he's going to talk about my lifestyle. I don't want to change my lifestyle. It's so hard to change my lifestyle. I agree. It depends how serious you are and how serious sometimes the malady that we have. And if you're tired of just going to another doctor appointment and really not looking at things, I mean, high blood pressure and cholesterol and your adrenals and all these different things, which are important, but sometimes you got to ask, are these guys in with the big pharma? My daughter-in-law, who works for a company I know, used to sell the medications for bipolar and those kind of disorders to doctors. She was tall, she was blonde, she's pretty. She'd walk into the office, smooth with the doctors a little bit, give them the latest, give them a few samples, and just keep up that relationship. Basically, it was a win for the doctors and a win for the pharma. I don't know if it helped the patient. All right, let's take a look. What's happening? Again, a little bit of the negative side. Obesity is preventable. Common diseases: arthritis, back pain, cancer, diabetes, infertility, stroke, and heart disease. You can test your BMI. That's here. That's your body mass index and see where you are. Unfortunately, stunning rise in America. Look at men, from 10% up to about 35 in obesity. Now, overweight stayed about the same. Extremely obese, from about 0 up to about 5%. Women, I'd say even worse. They were maybe at 15 here, and they went over 40% obese. Overweight, about the same. Extremely obese went from about 2% to 12%. Unbelievable. 73.6% of Americans over the age of 20 are overweight or have obesity. It causes all sorts of problems. Added fats are an issue. You can see butter went down, lard went down, margarine went down, But here's shortening. That went down, replaced by oils. These are all the seed oils. Big danger signs, if you listen to some of the pundits who know a lot about this, of how much oils we're taking in. Any of the deep fried stuff, any of the salad dressings, almost all of them have a lot of this seed oil. We'll talk about it later. And again, here our caloric intake just went way high from 1960. This is up to 2010. Interesting. I just want to say on Google, I can't find data over the last 4 years. Things have just been scrubbed. So the alternative medicine data that I could get before and did research, I love research and I've done a lot of research, but all of a sudden it wasn't available anymore. And that was shocking. And look at this, 210. Why doesn't it go up to 220? All these data things that they don't want aren't being put out there. Here's another one. Sugar, you knew back in the 1800s they didn't eat much sugar. And now we're way up here. We're 20 times more. Same thing went with, here's the obesity chart. Same thing went with the vegetable oil consumption. Even though sugar's down a little bit than what it was a few years ago, the oils, again, are adding the problem. So we're going to look at L. First off, Linda, lifestyle, reduce stress. Easier said than done. There are things you can do. There's a lot of good stuff on the internet that will talk about reducing stress. I'm not going to get into it. If you are tense, you got to realize this affects your immune system, and that affects your health. So if you want to stay stressed, but you're going to pay for it. Cutting out the sugars, that's normal in any of these. They'll say how much sugar you're eating. It's not that you can't have any, but you really have to cut it back. I know we don't eat sugars. I probably eat a candy bar or two a year. I'll have a dessert every once in a while, probably once a month. But I'm not addicted to it. And they say the addiction of sugar, and I've read this, is close to that of heroin. Try it. Try cutting out sugar. Once you're off of it for a month or two, it doesn't feel bad at all. You feel like, why was I so pulled toward that all the time? Something sweet. Cut the vegetable oils. They aren't really vegetable oils. We're talking about soy oil and corn oil, high fructose corn syrup. These things, well, that's a syrup, that's a sugar. But these things that are out there, the only ones that you may want to work with are avocado oil, coconut oil, olive oil. And then some of the olive oils can be adulterated and mixed with other things. Exercise. That's an obvious, but it's so critical. I'll show you later on in some of the slides that are on cancer of how critical those things are. Then just one area I think is you need to do. It's your body. Don't have some doctor somewhere in another office who really doesn't care that much about you give you what you should be doing. How do you know that's the best thing? Well, I just trust the guy with the white coat. Okay, that's fine. You can do that. Long time ago, I stopped doing that, even with Matt. I mean, the son who died, and I was with the oncologist. And she's saying, well, we have this cocktail we can give him. I'd already read up on it. I said, yeah, that has a lot of side effects. Half the people dropped out of the study. She said, yeah, it does. And it only increases your lifespan by about 2 or 3 months. Yeah, it does. I mean, she didn't know what to say except, well, we don't have to have him on that. But my son Matt, I realized he wasn't taking a lot in at that point. He'd had numerous brain surgeries, and he was a great kid, just a fine, godly man. Sunshine is good. I have a couple pages in my book on it, and you can go into different sites that talk about this. But basically, people who are in the sunshine in general have less melanoma than those that are in an office complex. It's hard to find these studies anymore. They've scrubbed them. As long as you're not burning yourself badly, sunshine is good. And we'll talk about vitamin D. It also does some other things within your system. Eating right, we'll talk about that a little bit more. Smoking, of course, no. Being thankful, grateful. You'll hear this from so many people who said, you need to be grateful and thankful. Why? It's healthy. It helps you. Issues of the spirit. This is kind of critical. If you have a cancer diagnosis, you have a heart issue, you have something that you're going to be going through that's going to take some time, don't be alone. Get a good support person, preferably someone who knows how to study, who knows how to research a little bit, can dig behind things and find out some other ideas. Having a will to fight. Will to live, fighter is important. Laughing, relaxing, planning, doing it. Relieve stress. I already said that one, didn't I? Acknowledge God, you know, in all your ways, and He will direct your paths. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. I think a lot of people come to this and they realize, okay, I can't control my life. I need God. God is there for you. Don't live by your emotions. Live by the truth. Certain people, this country was run by fear over COVID, a false fear, a false narrative. It was that you were going to die. You were going to get this and die. 4% were going to die. It ended up to be 0.001% that died. And then it wasn't from COVID. It was from some of the other things that we did. Yes, COVID was a respiratory disease, just like a cold is a respiratory disease. Thousands of people die from the flu every year. But we got all bent out of shape. We were living by our emotions, listening to what the media told us. We need to live by the truth. Remove conflicts, forgive, reconcile, love. Use a doctor that encourages all of this. These are hard to find. I'm in an area of Florida right now that there's no one close by. It's an hour and a half before I could get someone. I'm going to be looking more into telemedicine and see who is a good doctor who can help you people out there on some of this stuff. Health is a journey. It's not just one stop in the road. It's a lifestyle. It's something you adopt. If you want a pill, this isn't what I'm giving you today isn't really going to help very much. Because if you just want a pill to get rid of the ill and get rid of the symptoms, then you don't want the lifestyle change. And it's not easy. You can ease into it. You don't have to jump in all at once. Improve your cellular energy and immune function, your gut, your biome within your gut. We have hundreds of thousands of bacteria in our gut, in our lining, and they are doing us a service. We want to keep that good because it is our immune system. Depletions abound: vitamin D, vitamin C, trace minerals, magnesium, a number of items you could be taking, probably should be taking. I'll talk about those a little bit later. But again, that's an alternative medicine doctor. I'm going to mention Dr. Mercola, Mercola. I would get his daily updates, as he will give things that are in depth with the studies, and they're so valuable. Fight inflammation and low-grade infections. That can be done somewhat with foods: curcumin, resveratrol, fish oils. We'll talk about those a little bit later too, but you need to cut inflammation. Your C-reactive protein, CRP, highly sensitive CRP. Check that on your blood and see where you are. It should be quite low. And if it's not, then you've got some inflammation occurring. Building the inner terrain, the gut biome, prebiotics, probiotics, fermented foods. These are things that help in getting that gut function where it should be. You can even fight allergy response by boosting the immune function. I know the therapy that I designed worked very well for certain people in allergies. It also worked very well with things like shingles, which was an immune system response to the herpes virus. You had chickenpox when you were young. Now you're stressed a little bit. Your immune system flares up, causes this painful rash. The stuff that I worked with the UBI, I'll mention it later, but basically would kick shingles in about 2 days. Oxygenate, exercise, and oxidative therapies. There's a number of them out there. Of course, realize chemo and radiation act as an immune suppressant. They want your immune system to go down. They want to kill the fast-growing cancer cells. For some cancers, that's very valuable. I'll give you a book that you can look at. For other cancers, it isn't doing much at all. And you should know which ones those are. Your doctor should know. And those are tough questions to ask sometime. We'll talk about cancer stem cells in a bit too. Hormones. As we age, things change. Here's testosterone. See up here, 20-year-old. Here's me in the 70s. I got it in my mid-calves. That's so much testosterone. But I have been replacing natural hormone therapy, testosterone, and I'm back up into here. That's a good thing. I mean, we can just continue to not have any testosterone, and it works in a number of areas of strength and muscle building, energy. But these are the hormones that we ought to address as we age. Testosterone, thyroid. I'll give you a little example out of my life. So I was about 50, and I'm working, and I've got companies going, and I would come home in the afternoon at probably 4 o'clock, and I was dead. I could not think. I could not read. I had to lay down, sleep for half an hour, 40 minutes, and then get up and eat, and then I felt a little bit better. And then the next morning I was okay, and then I would go again. I did this year after year until I got together with an alternative medicine doctor. He said, well, let's try testosterone. Actually, my conventional doctor said, let's try testosterone. Tried that, didn't do anything. He said, well, let's do your thyroid hormones. Okay, tried that. That didn't seem to do anything. Then I met with a guy, and he said, you should do all three of these: testosterone, thyroid hormones, and cortisol, your adrenal hormones, DHEA. It was like somebody turned the light on, and it was unbelievable, because I thought, as maybe you do, I'm just going to have to live with this for the rest of my life. And you don't. Maybe. I can't guarantee. Even things like glutathione, anti-inflammatory, it helps us break down nutrients. It helps regulate the immune response and helps with oxidative stress. These things, we naturally make them, but sometimes we're low. And to get some added can really help. Now, the sad American diet, standard American diet, 70% of the food you eat normally is processed. Well, what's that? It's got a package and a label on it and a bunch of ingredients in it. It's not straight potatoes or tomatoes or meat or, real food. Just real food. And there's the other things. 10% of our disposable income we spend on fast food. I read an interesting statistic, and it was talking about the 1950s, that we spent 25% of our disposable income on food. 25%. Now we spend less than 15% on food. But most people could say, I can't buy organic. I can't buy these expensive things. Here's another huge one. Soft drinks, sold to kids in the schools, high schools, middle schools, so that they want the sugar. There are 10 teaspoons of sugar in every bottle of Coke. Okay? Regular bottle size. 10 teaspoons of sugar. There's 7 in fruit juices. They just aren't things, if you get cancer, that you're going to go after. But, somehow moving away from these sugared drinks is really critical for a lot of people. So let's talk about nutrition. I already talked about juices and sugar, the standard American diet. Low vitamin D, I'm going to give you a chart on that because it is part of the hormonal nutrition that we need for our whole body. I'll give it to you in a second. Food allergies, where'd they come from? In 1950 when I grew up, nobody had a peanut allergy. Nobody had a gluten allergy. But all of a sudden, it's just shot through the roof. We have insulin resistance. We have glycemic resistance or imbalance. In other words, we're taking too many sugars and carbs in. We have a need for proper vitamins. Eat more clean veggies, digestive enzymes, which I mentioned with the probiotics and fermented foods. Iodine. I take iodine every day. Lugol solution, 3 drops. It works on my thyroid. Curcumin, omega-3. CoQ10, glutathione, all of these things. Here's that spike in severe food allergies from even 07 in 10 years, went from 5 to 22%. Unbelievable. Why? Why isn't the Fauci studying these things? In 1950, 6% of the American population had a chronic disorder. In 2020, over 50% had a chronic disorder. Do you think that just happens? You think autism went from nothing up to 600% in 20-some years and nothing caused it? I mean, it's like we're brain dead in this medical field. unless, of course, you're pharma and you have a drug for that. This is a really interesting chart. You can go there, Grassroots Health, and pretty interesting because they claim 70%. Okay, I have to explain this a little bit. I hope let me get the one from the thing here. Okay, there we go. See this where it says USA serum, and that's a serum level of vitamin D. If you're way down here, you could have rickets, like 18 to 20. A lot of people are in this low 20s area. If you get up to here, mine right now is right about here. How many of you know your vitamin D level? You should. Why? 70% reduction in cancers. On breast cancer, somewhere between 30 and 83 could be eliminated. Ovarian cancer, 12 to 17%. Colon cancer, 31 to 60%. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, 12 to 18%. Type 1 diabetes, from 25 to 60%, could be eliminated with a level of vitamin D. The levels are here, 32 here up to about 60. They say you should be anywhere from 50 up to 90. Don't say, oh, I'm good enough, I'm at 26. I mean, if that's your mentality, you've got it wrong. You don't want to be on the low end, I'm alive level. I want to be on the high end, I'm optimal. I mean, that's common sense. Some other ones, fractures. 25 to 60% of fractures could be stopped. Excuse me, did I get the right one? That's diabetes. 25 to 50% of fractures could be stopped. We should be giving vitamin D in the old folks' homes, in the assisted living care. Their levels should be up to 60 or 70 or 80. They should be getting 50,000 units. That's what some people say. I'll leave it at that. To get you up to the level, and then you can do 5,000, 3 to 5,000 per day to stay at that level. That's recommendations. You can read it on Grassroots Health. I'm not giving you recommendations, but that's what's said. Heart attacks cut from 33 to 54%. That was multiple sclerosis. Heart attacks, 30% reduction. Kidney cancer, 22 to 49%. You got it? You got the idea here? With these levels of vitamin D alone, it can change the healthcare system in America. Why don't we want it? It's cheap. It's not patentable. It's not a drug. Who's going to promote it? Well, I am, but that's the idea behind it. So diet does play a role in cancer. I know there have been doctors' offices, cancer doctors' offices, they have a bowl of candy sitting there. What are we thinking? Here's one of 147 pancreatic cancer patients who made no dietary change. Over 99% were dead after 1 year, while 52% of a matched group of 23 patients consumed macrobiotic, this is a lot of fresh veggies, diets, remained alive. Let's get into the detox. That's another area too. Again, now we're getting into cleaning the fish bowl, okay? Ridding the body of those things that create a hostile to healing environment. Yeah, sauna. Been around for centuries, sweating. One comment, if you do a sauna, take a shower afterwards, the things that come out of you need to be washed off and down the drain. I used to have a sauna that I could sit with my head out and I could actually read a book, and the whole body was being, cooked. Water, half your weight in ounces a day, pretty common. Bowel health, you should have 2 bowel movements a day. Should have. Now that deals with the food intake that you've got. And so that's an area to be concerned about. Bring in the best air, water, and food. I'm in Florida. We're on the beach. It's beautiful. Lots of fresh air. It's wonderful. The water here, laced with chlorine and fluoride. So we buy bottled water, and we have a little unit that has reverse osmosis that does not have a capture system, because that's a problem too. So we're drinking really clear water. We cook with it. We make our coffee with it. It's not that we don't go out and do things, but if we can help it, we get the best. 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Don't I wish? I've worked on it. I've read on it. I've studied it. I'm still working on it. Some nights are good. Some nights aren't. Some people sleep like a log. My wife's father, Stan, died when he was 96, and he slept every night. Got up once maybe to use the bathroom. Said, "How'd you sleep?" "Oh, great. Got up once." There you go. And he'd catch 8 hours of sleep every night. I thought, amazing. So there's something in that. Meditation. I meditate on scriptures and God somewhat. I should do more. Pausing in your day to think about things. Think about the things that you're grateful for. 10 minutes. It can change your whole attitude. Breathing. There's a number of people who work with a breathing issue and making sure that you're getting a good breath and deep breath. Intermittent fasting, it's kind of a fad right now. I think it's good. Most of these books will talk about skipping breakfast. So you have at least a 12-hour to 16-hour window. It's something called autophagy, and allowing old cells to be broken down during this period. And certainly most religions have certain fasting times that they do. I think my longest fast was 3 days. And I haven't done fast. I do the intermittent fasting every once in a while. But that is part of the program. Keto or keto flex diet. If you're overweight, if you're obese, many people say keto or keto flex diet. You can read about it. I'll give you the resources for it. It's a lot of fats, meats, and low carbs. And there's plenty of food. You can eat all sorts of food. You just can't throw the starches and those vegetable oils and all that stuff in. Parasite removal. I've been to, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 different foreign countries, and I've had parasites. There are some natural ways to get rid of it, but I hear ivermectin works very well on horses and people. Toxic teeth. Oh my goodness. I didn't realize it, but we have cavitations or areas in our mouth that can have bacteria residing. I would recommend going to this website right here. If you've had a root canal, it might be just fine, or it may be fostering bacteria growth that is then leaked into your body. There is no blood flow down in that area. And bacteria, many times, I've listened to 2 or 3 renowned doctors who are into the biological dentistry area. And they say, I don't care. If you've got a root canal, you need to have it cleaned out, because the bacteria that's in there is the bacteria that causes all sorts of problems. Mold is another issue. In a house with mold, I heard of some people, doctors, and they were in their house and they didn't realize, they were there for years, and they're just getting sicker and sicker and sicker. They did mold testing, and it was that there was a small leak that would get into their ductwork, and it had grown mold inside the duct. And every night they turn the AC on and would just blow that mold into their house. I mean, it can be very, very toxic. Some people can stand mold pretty easily. We all stand some mold. You don't get away from it. Chelation. Chelation therapy is getting rid of heavy metals in your body. They accumulate, and many times they won't be excreted. It depends a little bit on your genetics and different things. But cadmium, lead, arsenic, I'm trying to think of the other ones. Anyway, heavy metals are items that we can get rid of with what's called EDTA, chelation. So I forget what it stands for, but it will grab those materials out of your bloodstream and you excrete them. Problem is then it draws more out of your bone, and you have to do this for a period of, I think, 10 to 15 IV sessions before you can be cleared. EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. Some people are very, very sensitive to this. I know a lady who can't go into a place that has strong Wi-Fi. I mean, 2% maybe of the population. You've seen those pictures, haven't you, where they take fluorescent tubes and they stick them in the ground under power lines and they all light up? Well, that's electromagnetic frequency. We're all exposed to some of it. Now with the cell phones, young girls with laptops sitting on their lap and hour after hour after hour, probably not a healthy thing to do. Um, and the heavy metals is part of the chelation. I'm sorry, I should have put that in there. Here's a little graphic picture so you can see dirty water. Yeah, nutrient depleted foods. That's a little bit of what's happened is we don't have normal food anymore like we did. Even in the 50s, it wasn't that processed. But now everything's convenience, convenience, convenience. You can go in, you can get the frozen dinner and rip off the plastic, stick it in the microwave, and 3 minutes, 5 minutes later, you've got a dinner. Um, Electromagnetic fields, radiation, toxic relationships aren't good, toxic emotions, heavy metals, polluted air. And I'll put that on again. Antibiotics, let me just make a comment. Antibiotics kill bacteria. They're really, really helpful in many situations. But those of us who've had lots of antibiotics, you kill off the good bacteria in your gut too. That's not healthy. And really, if you can avoid an antibiotic with something, do. Now, I know sometimes there's not. And antibiotics were super when we first got them because they didn't morph around the antibiotic. The bacteria didn't morph and change quickly, but they do now. So we have something called superbugs. And those superbugs have gone around the antibiotics. So antibiotics, great, but dangerous. Pesticides, biotoxins, allergens. If you don't think of pesticides, think of glyphosate. Glyphosate is Roundup. Roundup. So Roundup gets sprayed many times on wheat to knock it over early so it dries a little bit faster. Serious. I mean, all of us almost have glyphosate in our system, and it's a problem. So what do we need? Healthy foods, nutrition, purpose and will, sunshine, get out there. I'm down in Florida, I take my shirt off, heat of the day, anywhere from 20 minutes to 40 minutes, I want to be out in the sun, just soaking it up. And like I say, you can look at the stats on it, but all of this stuff promoted again by the sunscreen people want to scare you in the medical community. And they want you to think, I can't even get out in the sun. I see people slathering up their kids with all these, sunscreens. And I said, how healthy is that? Have you read on those? Some of them are very, very detrimental. Great attitudes, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness. God has all of those things. Restful sleep, pure water, fresh air. Your drains, your bowels, your liver, your kidneys, your lymphatics, your sweat. Those are all the things that will take out some of those things. Sometimes it needs a little help. Get rid of that. Glyphosate and autism, again, another chart. I'm not saying, they just say here's a correlation, not causation. Something caused it. I think Bobby Kennedy said it. There's 6 or 7 things that have caused the autism to occur. Glyphosate and pesticides might be one. Vaccines might be another one. And he listed off these 5 or 6 things, which, again, our government is not interested in finding out. Bless you, parents who have an autistic or grandparents, autistic kids. It's a tussle. It's a real tussle. The thing is, if we can avoid it, you need to read Children's Health Defense Fund website. That's Bobby Kennedy's Children's Health Defense Fund. He gets into vaccines quite a bit, and that should be helpful. Where do we get this idea of one pill for one ill? Well, it really came from Pasteur. He said microbes come from without. There's truth to that. And therefore, since they come without, if we can find something that will attack them, antibiotics, then we're home free. Now, another guy named Beauchamp, right at the same time, said, no, it's not just the microbes that do this. The microbes morph inside of us because of a toxic tissue terrain. So we're not healthy, so these microbes can grow instead of being stopped. That's a healthy immune system. I mean, yes, there are some things that you can't take in, Ebola, and you're going to have problems with, But most of the common cold illnesses, if you're healthy and your inner terrain and your immune system, you're going to get through it. A combination of both is probably true. But belief in a germ theory has caused our medical community to go from, the homeopaths were shut down, the chiropractors were shut down basically, and the DOs were shut down from the Flexner Report way back by Rockefeller back in the early 1900s because they saw pharmacy was going to be, and making pharmaceuticals was going to be the key thing of repeat business. They want you sick early and long. I hate to say it that way. I don't think the normal doctor does, but when you get down to the business side of it, read the real Anthony Fauci. Chelation. So here's an example of getting rid of something. 231 subjects, 59 received at least 10 calcium EDTA chelation infusions. That's you sit for an hour with a drip going into you, and it removes toxic metals, and then you urinate them out. A matched group of 172 was not treated. After 18 years, there was only one death. 1.7 of the patient group due to cancer occurred in the treated group as opposed to 30 in the untreated group, tenfold decrease in cancer death. So now we get down to the point of what can we do against things. And I'm just going to talk about cancer a little bit. There are things that we can do. Here's again some of those IV therapies might be just what you need. There's Meyer cocktail, and there's B vitamins, and a whole bunch. Detoxification, there are different systems with that. There's the Hakat sauna. Mine is the ultraviolet blood irradiation down here. That's one. V-cell is an injection therapy for joints. I mean, all sorts of different things that can be used to attack this disorder. This is where I'm doing all this right stuff, and I got something wrong. I go to my alternative doctor, and we're going to talk about what to do to get at that. I mean, a cancer, Nick Gonzalez worked with pancreatic enzymes. Gene targeted is Brzezinski. He's down in Houston, I think. Just had a good friend who's going down there. She had breast cancer, and it wasn't much out of the inductus sutu, but anyway, she's working with that. IPT is a novel thing that some alternative doctors do. High vitamin C, Meyer cocktail, antioxidants. These are my brother-in-law Todd, had stage 4 prostate cancer before he found it. Okay, his back hurt, very athletic, very aggressive guy going out there. And he said, okay, what do I have to do? He changed his lifestyle like that. He lived for, I think it was 7 years. He had been told he'd be only living for a year or so. He lived 7 years, combination, a little bit of conventional medicine and a lot of the alternative medicine. He said high vitamin C, Reardon Clinic, I think they're in Wichita, Kansas, or Kansas City, Wichita, I think. A lot of doctors do the high vitamin C. He said that was the thing that he felt was the most beneficial. 7 years, and he had a good life all right up until the last few months. Things slowed down. I mean, he was riding motorcycle, riding a speedboat, just enjoying life. Cancer stem cell repurposed drugs, diet and supplementation by Gerson. These are all attack the cancer ideas. Again, if you go online and you say, "Are we winning the war on cancer?" They'll say, "Oh yeah, okay." Take a look. 1997. This goes out to 2020. You're going to gain by age 60. This is 65 and older. This is what's happening. If you're 18 years and older, it's still going up. Cancer is not decreasing. We do not have drugs that handle cancer. When you hear some pie in the sky comment from some research place that we're curing cancer, I go, bless you. I hope you are. The stats don't look good. Now, what we forget about, and this is a picture, I'm going to give you the name of the book if you're cancer oriented, you want to look at it. This is cancer the tree. What do? We can radiate the tree, chemo the tree, and we can cut the tree. But there are roots that go down. These are pathways, and they go down, and there are cancer stem cells. Cancer stem cells don't grow fast. But as soon as, and I read this report 10, 15 years ago, it was University of Michigan. They were talking about how when they radiate breast cancer, that it causes the stem cells to be released and travel throughout the body. They know that within 5 years, pretty much, it's going to reoccur. Now, they stop it for now by the surgery and the chemo and so on. But there's some ways we can actually get at these cancer stem cells instead of just picking the 3 things. You know, if all you got's a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and you're just going to nail it. If all you got's radiation, chemo, and surgery, that's all you're going to do. You aren't going to look outside into the alternative world. Like I say, I don't think there's too many doctors that would say Todd didn't do the right thing. He did, but it was a lifestyle change. All right, 60 to 80% of cancers are preventable. This is not from me. This is from the First Line COVID Care Doctors group, and I'll give you the website. There it is, flccc.net. Insulin resistance. You're overweight. You're eating the wrong foods. You're insulin resistance, and it's growing. Quitting smoking, limiting alcohol, getting enough vitamin D, getting your levels up to 50 to 80, avoiding processed foods, avoid sugar drinks, and that includes fruit juice. Get enough exercise, if you want to know what enough is. 20 minutes a day, that is somewhat aerobic. Brisk walk, ride on the bike, swim in the pool. Those are all aerobic. Resistance training is when you're lifting weights that after 3 reps of maybe 12, you're at your max. And you do that for 20 minutes 3 times a week. That's all you need. So that's basic. Stress reduction, 8 hours of sleep, and then limit your exposures to carcinogens. This was a study done that added vitamin D, omega-3. These are fish oils. We get krill oil. We kind of like that one, the double one. I think it's Life Extension or Mercola. And this is a slow home exercise program. No, simple home exercise program, SHEP. And they did it alone, and you know, it's got a little bit of help, but then when they do all 3 of those, vitamin D, omega-3, and a simple home exercise program, they reduced cancer significantly. Now, this is his monogram. You can click on that. If you need the website, it's on YouTube, and you can just put in Paul Merrick discusses his cancer care. Paul Merrick is a brilliant guy. I wrote about him a little bit in my book because he actually found a way to get rid of sepsis with high vitamin C and 2 or 3 other things, thiamine, some simple things, and he got fired for it, basically. He cut it from 50% down to 2%. And what did the medical community do? They went out and they did a bogus study and they defamed him. Serious. I mean, it's unbelievable what happened there. Oh, let me just mention this, and I'm almost done here. Alzheimer. This is Dale Bredesen's book, End of Alzheimer's. Do you believe that? The first protocol to enhance cognition and reverse decline at any age. Buy it, get it used, read it. These are the areas he looks at, which we've looked at before, just though they sound familiar: inflammation, poor diet, high blood pressure, toxins, insulin resistance, stress, lack of exercise, social isolation, lack of nutrients, and poor sleep. I mean, he deals with all those subjects, and you can reverse Alzheimer. It's a little rigorous, I must admit, but what's the alternative? And memory loss and, all those things. I'll just comment on this. No, I'm going to skip over this. I would recommend that you sign up for Dr. Joe McCullough's newsletter, McCullough.com, and get his daily newsletter and read it. Sometimes he gets a little into politics. I don't mind that. Sometimes he's into business and finance. But most of the time he's dealing with alternative medicine. He has top doctors on who help. So that's great. LifeWorks Wellness, if you want to see a list of different therapies, this is my website. You can go in there. If you're looking for a doctor, I think we have a Find a Physician spot. You can do that. I don't get any money from this. Canceractive.com is another great one. There's that monogram by Dr. Paul Merrick. Exercise and eat right. Get your D levels up. Test your bioidentical hormones. Find an alternative physician. Do your own research. There's my book. Thank you.